to bits, easy.
Get rid of it.
The old magic's still there.
Hello friends, this is Grief speaking. Well, it's Weird Wednesday, where I put the spotlight on weird, insane, and otherwise bizarre pieces of media. If you've been anywhere near a movie theater in the last 2 decades, you've likely heard of Peter Jackson, arguably one of the biggest filmmakers of all time, most notably for directing the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But did you know that the same guy who directed this
I made a promise, Mr. Frodo. A promise.
also directed this? The same guy who directed this
I found it is the small things, everyday deeds of ordinary folk that keeps the darkness at bay.
also directed this. If you're a horror fanatic like myself, you've likely heard of his blood-soaked zombie gore fest, Brain Dead, even if you didn't realize it was a Peter Jackson flick. But I want to go back just a little further with Jackson's first feature-length film and the subject of today's Weird Wednesday, bad taste. I mean, look at that poster. You know you're in for some crazy shit when you see that. When I first turned this movie on, I was sure it was going to be a little boring, but I was hoping maybe I could have a laugh at some of the shitty effects and low-budget acting. Well, I did get to do that, but I also got one of the most charming and insane low-budget horror action films I've ever seen, and it kept me entertained the entire time. Human-eating aliens, crazy gore effects, gunfights, rocket launchers, thick New Zealand accents.
Derek's wiped out 5 of these alien jokers. The place is like a bloody abattoir.
And not to mention one of the most underrated action heroes of all time, Derek. The basic premise here is that everyone in a small New Zealand town suddenly disappears and a task force is sent in to figure out what's going on. Soon they realize that aliens have taken human form and are collecting earthlings to use as meat for an intergalactic fast food chain. The first couple minutes aren't exactly promising. Some dude with a goatee is wandering around when he starts being stalked by a strange guy with an axe. This goes on way too long. He tells the guy to buzz off, but he just keeps following him like a zombie. All the while, some goofball is chiming in on his radio, commenting on the whole situation.
You think you'd better kill him, Barry?
Geez, he could be Ministry of Works or something.
Nah, he's moving too fast.
Finally hitting a dead end at the beach, the goatee guy pulls out a gun and blows the dude's head off. These may be cheap effects, but they're also really gross. It looks like they used real animal guts or something for this guy's brains, and it's gnarly. Not to mention the blood spraying out of what's left of his head. We see the guy from the radio has been watching from a high cliff with his binoculars. He just says,
I hope I'm not the poor bastard that's got to clean that up.
and that's when I knew this was going to be a fun movie. From this point on, it just gets more and more insane. I won't break down the whole thing, but I'll share some of my favorite parts. First, let's talk about the action here. Most movies of this caliber would have a handful of action sequences and special effects peppered throughout the movie here and there to keep you just interested enough to keep watching. I expected there to be 2 or 3 gory kills with a lot of nothing in between. But despite the low budget, bad taste just never stops. The action is constant, the kills are brutal, and the gore is plentiful. Even in between the thrills, the movie's so over the top it just keeps you laughing the whole time. One of the best parts of the movie is the man, the myth, the legend, Derek. This is the guy with the binoculars we saw earlier, who happens to be played by Peter Jackson himself. We first see him torturing one of the residents to confirm that they're an alien. Funny enough, this alien is also played by Peter Jackson. It's amazing what a haircut, some glasses, and a clean shave can do. But the legend of Derek really begins when he's attacked by a group of aliens and he takes them all down single-handedly with an Uzi. It's even more badass than that. He shoots a hole through the first guy's stomach, but unfortunately the body falls on him, so as the other guys approach, his only option is to force the Uzi through the hole that he blew in the guy's stomach and fire at them. It's pretty awesome. He almost kills all of them, but gets thrown off the cliff, falling hundreds of feet and landing in a splash of blood. Poor Derek. Meanwhile, a traveling salesman shows up to town not knowing it's been taken over and replaced by aliens and gets kidnapped. They put the goofy bastard in a tub full of ingredients to prepare him for dinner. The other 3 task force members find their alien base and go in to rescue the guy. I love the banter between these guys as they prepare for the mission.
Yeah, but you know what the rules are. When we work undercover, we have to remain faceless.
Oh, I get it. Just in case we kill a lot of innocent people.
Don't you forget, Oz, we're only authorised to use violence when there's a threat to the planet Earth.
And the moon.
Yeah, and the moon.
In one of the most disgusting scenes in the movie, one of the agents is pretending to be an alien and is forced to participate in a strange alien ritual where one of the aliens pukes in a bowl and everyone has to eat it. It's revolting, and it's hilarious. Well, they eventually get found out, and soon there's a huge shootout. Honestly, it's like 20 minutes of these dudes shooting aliens to death. I should also note that most of the movie the aliens look like humans, but they do eventually transform back into their natural state. They look like something you'd see in the background of the cantina scene in Star Wars. Their awkward bodies poke out of their human clothes, including their ass cheeks, which made me burst up laughing the first time I saw it. Now, you probably think that Derek's fall from the cliff was the end, but oh no. While the other guys are battling the aliens, Derek has survived. I guess a bunch of seagulls broke his fall, and somehow he's mostly okay. Well, except for the fact that his skull is cracked open and his brains are leaking out. Despite being so low budget, this is one of the grossest effects I've seen in recent memory. His scalp and skull peel back like a trapdoor, and when it opens, he just spazzes out like he's gone dumb. He picks up part of his brain which fell out and shoves it back in the hole before closing it up. I mean, honestly, I could barf. So he makes his way to his car and puts the top hat on, I guess to keep the skull from opening. By the way, his car is a bizarre invention. He has a cutout of the Beatles behind the windshield, but there's a second windshield above that, and Derek stands up there to drive. It's so weird, and it plays no part in the story other than just being funny. Well, later Derek ends up losing his hat and more brains until he uses his belt to secure the head flap from opening again. He just gets more and more crazy as the film goes on. At one point, he pulls a chainsaw out of his trunk, and when he shows up to the alien base, you're practically cheering. In my opinion, this dude is right up there with Ash Williams.
Suck my spinning steel, shithead!
So yeah, I know I mostly talked about Derek here, but there is so much more about this movie that I could go on forever. I watch a lot of low budget horror films, and this one honestly surprised me with how entertaining it is, so do yourself a favor and check it out. It's hard to get a hold of, but there may or may not be an upload of the entire film on YouTube, just saying. So that's this week's Weird Wednesday, but we're not done with Peter Jackson. Next week I'm going to cover an even more bizarre movie he made called Meet the Feebles. It's an R-rated, drug, sex, and violence-filled movie made entirely with puppets. Yep, so tune in for that next Weird Wednesday. This is Grief speaking. Goodbye, friends.